Hello everyone. As the country goes into lockdown tonight at midnight, we'd like to share some viewpoints with you where we believe the current level 5 restrictions are not in any way as bad as the lockdown that was imposed upon us in March. Clearly they're bad for some people, clearly they're detrimental for some businesses. But overall, from an Irish perspective, we believe that this level 5 restriction is not as bad as the one in March, and that there is hope and that there is reason to be positive. Firstly, I'd like to say that from a Doolan perspective, we're delighted that we are still able to trade. We are classified as an essential services provider, and therefore the services that we provide into the creche, healthcare, construction, manufacturing, food processing sectors will continue as normal. We take that as an enormous privilege. We don't take it lightly. And we're delighted that our services are able to help those businesses to maintain a safer, efficient, compliant trading environment. So our 5 tips. The first one is again to put things into a little perspective. This week we have an average of 4.7 to 5 deaths per day. Spike yesterday, 0 the day before, but on average for the week it's been 4.7 to 5 over the last 7 days. On the 23rd of April, during the last lockdown, we recorded 220 deaths in the one day. All deaths are completely unacceptable. All deaths are sad, truly. But to put it in perspective, an average of 5 now versus 220 on the 23rd of April. We're in a very different position now than we were before. We acknowledge the restrictions that the government have put on us. We agree that action needed to be taken. However, we do not agree that locking down legitimate businesses and people is going to solve anything. We would far prefer to see people prosecuted and businesses prosecuted and the perpetrators brought to justice for this latest spike in cases. Then and only then should you start to consider further and wider restrictions across the economy. The second point I'd like to make is that the last time round, our entire economy was shut down. Nothing moved. Very little, bar food shops, petrol stations, healthcare, but everything else was closed. Construction, manufacturing, schools, everything else was closed. This time around, it's very, very, very different. This time, they have shut non-essential businesses, and that is absolutely detrimental for those businesses. We absolutely acknowledge that. And what I would say to those businesses that are closed is now is a fantastic time to get some non-essential stuff done. So train your employees, talk to your employees, get ready for the reopening again if you can reopen. And each and every one of our offices right across the country stand ready to help you do that. So don't be afraid to make contact with us. But the situation now, where the vast bulk of our economy is open, is far different than a situation in March, where we were all closed and then reopened on a piecemeal basis based on risk assessment. Our third point is that this time round, we have far greater clarity from our government. We're very confident that with an average death rate of 5, as opposed to 220 in April, that by the time the restrictions are lifted, we'll be in a far better place economically. This time we're told it's 6 weeks. This time we're told we have to get an R weight below 1. So hopefully the vast bulk of businesses can get back and open and trading again, although be it under certain restrictions, prior to Christmas. My fourth point is really more on a global level than anything else. And that is that some people are predicting that we're going to have a vaccine before the end of the year. Now, the 1st of December is 6 weeks away. Nobody could have ever predicted that back in March. We are also far better at contact tracing. We are also far better at hospital management. And yes, you can play a political game and say we could be better. And of course we can be better. But my point is this. We are far closer to a vaccine. We are far better at managing this disease now than we were last March. If you remember back then, the WHO issued a tweet to say that the Chinese had no evidence that the coronavirus was transmitted on a person-to-person basis. Now we know that very differently, and as a result can manage it very differently. My fifth and final point then is to put something into a little bit of perspective from an Irish perspective. According to the CSO in the last census, 25 people a day die from cancer in Ireland. Now that's 25 too many. But our average corona deaths are 5 people a day right now. Yet the media is not in any way balanced in terms of the impact that corona has on probably an increasing cancer death rate in Ireland, and certainly an increased suicide death rate because of corona. So that's 25 cancer deaths versus 5 corona deaths. So we would like just to put a little bit of balance and perspective into the economy and into people's minds. There's no doubt that action had to be taken to stem the increase in cases, but just a little bit of perspective. So essentially that's our state of the nation. That's our views as to why the lockdown now is not as bad as the lockdown originally in March. There is hope and there is reason to be positive. Finally, I'd like to say I wish everybody would stay safe. It's about personal responsibility. And if